Murder and Such contains true stories about murders, the macabre, true crime, serial killers, and other dark subject matter. This includes adult themes, explicit language, descriptions of gore, violence, and other information provided by news articles, witness testimony, and public record. Murder and Such is not intended for all audiences, and although warnings will be set in place, listener discretion is still advised.
Well, hello. Fancy meeting you here. My name is Hunter, and I bet you're wondering why there's a second episode just 1 week after episode 66 released. Well, I've been hoping to do something a little bit different as well. I'll still have the longer, lengthier, thick boy episodes every 2 weeks, but here and there, I'd like to give you a little extra something to listen to. I've been noticing that a lot of people actually like some of the smaller episodes of other shows, and the trend seems to be that these little bite-sized shows work. So here's my current idea, and yes, it's subject to change. Since I brought you the 3 cases and the backstory behind video game controversies over time, there was a lot more cases that I could choose from. Trust me, there's almost no shortage when it comes to things like that, but for this smaller tidbit, I'm going to keep it relative to episode 66 and give you one last episode involving violence and video games. For future smaller episodes, it might be something completely different or just a smaller case in general that there isn't a whole lot of backstory on. But rest assured, you know how my show is known for its in-depth detail and scouring the internet and court documents for information about the case, so I'm also going to be giving you that kind of depth as well. Also, with Patreon shoutouts, those will stay on the bi-weekly, big boy episodes. So if you don't hear your names at the beginning of the show, kind of like my new patrons Sarah Holston and Laura McDonald, I will keep you all in mind and place those into the longer episodes. I didn't forget about you, so please don't worry about that. But to be honest, it has been the patrons who have kept this show afloat for so long, since I kickstarted it about 2 years ago. So if you'd like to donate, you can find that at patreon.com/murderandsuch, and you'll get this episode and other episodes ad-free, my Patreon-only Richard Chase stickers, and I'll just charge the $1 for the big boy episodes, so smaller ones like this will be free. Plus, you'll be an executive producer for the show if you donate $5 or more per episode, and you will be thanked at the end of every big boy episode. But of course, that's not required. So again, I thank you for listening, I thank you for your patronage, I thank you for telling a friend about Murder and Such, and I thank you so goddamn much for the feedback and the 5-star reviews that I've received on Apple Podcast. You are all incredible, amazing humans, and I thank you. But without further ado, my name is Hunter, and you're listening to Murder and Such, and this is episode 66.5, the Jacksonville Landing Shooting.
All right, hello again. We're following this breaking news out of Florida, where there has been what authorities are calling a mass shooting at a game bar in Jacksonville. Jacksonville police are warning people to stay away from the area called Jacksonville Landing, saying the area is not safe at this time. It's unclear how many victims at this point there may be and how serious this shooting is, but it is being called a mass shooting. According to the sheriff's office there, ATF is responding to the scene.
Once again, we are going to talk about Madden. I discussed what it was, and actually, I need to make a correction thanks to my keen ear listeners, Lindsay and Sarah. I accidentally called Panama City Beach just Panama Beach on the last episode, so thank you, Sarah. And Lindsay told me that when I said that Madden 20 came out in 2019, and then said that Madden 2006 came out in 2015, it was actually supposed to be, that it came out in 2005. So thank you for that, Lindsay. I am an idiot, and I was up until I think about 2 a.m. that night editing the show, so it slipped past me. And also, you've heard me mention this particular person on the show, and a longtime listener as well, but the wonderful Maple Leaf up in Canada by the name of Georgia was having kind of a rough time. So if you're listening to this episode, please just put some kind of good vibes up in the air for our friend Georgia. So please, and thank you. But yes, Madden. You know, the American football game where Packers kick the shit out of the Minnesota Vikings. Go Pack, go. Where Goliath men fight over a piece of pigskin trying to get it to their goal in hopes of getting themselves a Super Bowl trophy or a set of rings, in which the Minnesota Vikings have never gotten. But it's not inherently a violent game. Not like Call of Duty, not like Gears of War, not like Dark Souls where you take down the Ted Cruz demon, and definitely not Hello Kitty Island Adventure. That one's just for the whole upper echelon of people who can handle gore, brutality, and violence that they've never seen before. But Madden, it's football. I will admit that there are some people who very much make it a competition, and of course, there's sore losers sometimes when it comes to things of that sort. But esports are now becoming a massive thing, similar to how they have competitions, tournaments, and championships with pretty much any sport like baseball, football, golf, etc. There's a whole new breed of competitors with video games, and to be honest, every year it's becoming more and more popular and the prize pool becomes larger and larger. There's been competitions for games like Fortnite, Overwatch, Call of Duty, FIFA, Counter-Strikes, and games like Madden. People will compete for thousands and thousands of dollars to win at a game of virtual football, which they have now dubbed the Madden Bowl. And for the winners of Madden Bowl 2020, the people who place 13th through 16th will receive $5,000, 9th through 12th place will get $7,500, 5th through 8th place will get $10,000, 3rd and 4th place will get $20,000, 2nd place will get $25,000, and the first place winner of Madden Bowl 2020 will walk out with a whopping $65,000 extra dollars in their pocket, all for just what people would consider just a video game. And honestly, that's pretty cool. Just a competitive video game where you can earn more in one match than the median income for an entire year as a person in America. As I mentioned in the last episode, they are usually streaming the game so people can watch them play just like you would watch a football game on TV. ESPN has even picked up the esports genre pretty well, I might add. It's a different time, and finally some of us geeks who sit on their asses, play video games, and do a shitty podcast can actually measure their articulation, their hand-eye coordination, and secure themselves a bag. That's pretty fucking neat. But before I get into the incident, I'm going to play you some audio clips from the Madden Bowl 2007 competition, and pay attention to how professional this stuff is.
Action, the kickoff live here at the 716 Food and Sports Bar in downtown Buffalo, and we are off. Brad in the Dark Bills jerseys. It'll be Cino with the Rock first, kicking off and receiving for his team in the white jerseys will be Cino in the white jersey. So that's the kickoff, and there you can see the two competitors. There's Cino Gotti, and we saw Brad previously there, and those guys are about ready to go and get this thing started, and it's going to be a great game. Looks like it'll be one of those situations where, hey, if you're Cino, this is an opportunity to prove it. A lot of confidence, a lot of banter, out there about how your game matches up. Can you get that 1 versus 2 matchup in the finals? Here's an opportunity to go ahead and prove it. He's got the ball first, and offensively for Gotti, passing game. That's what he's all about. So we'll see if he can get out there and start throwing the rock. Just a gain of 1 early on, though, Zach.
It looks like he's in the Rams' offensive playbook, and he gave the ball to Marcus Allen on the first carry of the game, and that's a smart move.
So, as you can hear, it's not your usual football commentators, but these guys are talking about two dudes who are playing a video game. Each actual player that they're talking about is being controlled by a single person. So you can imagine how focused, how intense, and how dedicated you have to be in a competition like this with just even a video game.
Now, on the other side is a PS4 player, Bread. He has had multiple accounts, but over the last 5 years or so, he's been a top 10 player online. There are hundreds of thousands of players that play Madden every single season, millions. He has been in the top 10 for the last 5 years. Now, he's at a live tournament, though, potentially for one of the first times we've seen this guy out there at a live event. So when you play online, you're in the comfort of your own home. You got a water next to you. You're not sitting on the hot seat. There's no cameras on you at home. So you feel really comfortable.
There's no crowd watching.
You don't have to wait to play. You can just hop on the next game. You play some players that are really good. Maybe you play some players that are still working their way up. But right now, across the seat from you, you got a player who's very good. And so let's see how this online player comes out.
That is absolutely insane. Millions of people play this game every single year. Hell, the first weekend of Madden 17 being on the market, it sold 1.06 million copies worldwide, which is a success when it comes to a video game. Like I mentioned on episode 66, each year there's a new Madden game, there's updated rosters, updated graphics, and sometimes they add new mechanics that make the game more seamless, but all in all, it's a pretty good series even if I'm not the biggest fan of it, and Madden 17 was the last one that I bought, just because I wanted to kick our old host Brittany's son's butt in a match, but although he picked the Packers in that match, so of course he won. But even after the game, they will send somebody to talk with the winners and losers of each match, just like they'll do in the shower rooms with real football players. It's super uncanny, but as they mentioned, this guy named Bread is playing the game, and he won, so they did an interview with him. Let's listen to that.
Speaking of confidence, he is downstairs standing by right now with the former great Buffalo Bill, Steve Tasker. Steve, take it away.
David, that game seemed to turn when you hit that long play down the left sideline right before halftime. You kind of went into game management mode. You decided not to score and then run the clock out for this first half.
Yeah, my opponent probably should have called his timeouts. I took advantage that he didn't. I was able to get another lucky play before the half. Fumble to start off the game was huge. Always a great way to start off a game. And just kind of chewed clock.
As always, turnovers are an enormous part. You even ended up getting one there on that the last drive that allowed you to run the clock out. Talk a little bit about, did you have to make any serious adjustments during the game?
Honestly, I felt like I had the ball most of the game. I wasn't really doing too much on defense. He was pretty much just playing cover two, came out with some cover two beaters.
So this kid, Bread, and yeah, everyone goes by a pseudonym when it comes to competitions like this. Like Tyler Blevins is known as his name Ninja. But they use these names to go by, and this kid, Bread, is only like 22 years old and just snagged himself a check for $10,000 for maybe like a half-hour match. That's like Jeff Bezos money in that amount of time. Actually, let me check. All right. Jeff Bezos has too much money, and wait, he makes like $149,353 per minute. So multiply that by 30 minutes. Alrighty, so Bezos makes $4,480,590 per half hour. Still, a 22-year-old kid making 10 grand is pretty fucking awesome. Remember that the next time that your kid is playing Fortnite for extended periods of time, because they could be here in Dayton roaming the streets and smoking crack with Crackhead Phil. But as always, yes, you can make money, and you can be one of millions of people who play a game, and one day, it can earn you some cash. That's truly some exciting shit right there. So each year that the competition goes on, the game usually sells more copies, which leads the publishers, EA Games, to make these competitions more profitable, and even players can grab themselves sponsorships of their own. It's literally pretty much like a normal sporting event, and some of these competitions are even sanctioned by local football teams, like this one was with the Bills. Now, I don't normally put promos in the middle of the show, but this one is particularly special considering it comes from a longtime listener of the show and professional UFC fighter, Ashley Evans Smith. And here is her promo for Sex and Violence with Rebel Girl. be sure to subscribe to it on all of your podcatcher services, and follow the show on Instagram at Sex and Violence with Rebel Girl. Thank you.
Hey guys, this is UFC fighter Ashley Rebel Girl Evans Smith, host of MMA's most intrusive yet appealing new podcast. If you've ever wondered what your favorite fighter is like outside the cage, or found yourself scrolling through their social media, wishing you could get to know them a little better, then tune in to Sex and Violence with Rebel Girl and connect with your favorite fighters like never before. Get all your naughty, nosy, and voyeuristic urges satisfied. We cover the full romantic spectrum: dating, relationships, love, and sex. You won't hear details like this on any other podcast out there. So put the kiddies to bed or throw in your earbuds, because it's about to get explicit. Subscribe on Apple Podcast, Spotify, and wherever else you listen.
But as I've now gushed for 2 episodes about video games, it's kind of my thing, so please don't kink shame me with it. So let's fast forward to Madden Bowl 2019. Also keep in mind that 2019 came out in 2018, but this was a standard tournament in Jacksonville, Florida. The competition itself was held at the GLHF bar, which is the Good Luck Have Fun bar, that's located in the Jackson Landing area, specifically on 2 Independent Drive, Suite 101, Jacksonville, Florida, zip code 32202. And on their website, it says that GLHF is, quote, Jacksonville's home for gamers and nerds alike. We like to get competitive and have a drink while we do it. You can find us right next to Chicago Pizza. In fact, we share the same door. But they catered to practically any sort of gamer: PC, console, arcade cabinets, and they even had board games, and even in a picture, it shows the Tower of Jenga. And it seems like the kind of place that I would probably find myself at. But on the day of August 26th of 2018, somewhere between 130 to 150 participants and patrons came into the bar to have a drink or just watch the tournament unfold. Of course, gamers, like every other sport, can be extremely competitive, especially with that kind of money on the line. But there were amateur players, there were professional players, and in the tournament world, there were a bunch of well-known professional players actually at that tournament. Players like Elijah Clayton, who was 22 years old and from Woodland Hills, California, and he flew all the way out there to play Madden under his pseudonym of True Boy. Now, another professional player by the name of Taylor Robertson, who was a season champion at the age of 27 from Ballard, West Virginia, and his pseudonym was Spot Me Please. Even the $10,000 winner from Madden Bowl 2017 named Bread, but his real name was actually David Katz. He was from Baltimore, Maryland, and he was coming back to get himself some of that sweet, sweet cheddar. A lot of professional players knew each other. A lot of them were going up and doing rematches against players they may have lost to before. It's a day of fun, competition, and good times. And maybe there's some shit talking here or there, you know, the I fucked your mother kind of stuff, but that's pretty common when it comes to video games. But as time goes on with any competition, there's winners, and of course, there's losers. People had gathered from all around the country just to flex their skills against one another in hopes of winning big. I know, it's just video games, but a lot of gamers take their skills very seriously, and with that kind of money on the line, you can just about imagine how tempers and emotions may be flaring. One of the final matches was between Wesley Gittins, otherwise known as Joe Rice for his gamertag, and his opponent, Elijah True Boy Clayton, both playing as the Atlanta Falcons against each other. Again, like I said before, these competitions were usually streamed via Twitch or an online hosting service that the tournament may have a deal with. With the current match, it was True Boy with a score of 7 and Joe Rice's score of 0 with 2 minutes and 32 seconds left in the first quarter. Then, at about 1:30 p.m. Eastern Time, All hell broke loose. The following audio is incredibly disturbing. It is somewhat lengthy, but you have been warned. If you would rather skip over it, please fast forward about 2 minutes into the episode.
Yeah. Joe Rice down 7-0 after the first drive by True Boy. Got a lot of good games going on.
It's a lot. It's going to be hard to get them on stream. It's
not
a lot.
It's not a tough out today. Excuse me, not an easy out.
Oh, fuck, what are you shooting with? Oh!
People who were online watching the match had no clue what was going on at that moment. But just as True Boy was kicking off towards Joe Rice, a red laser sight can be seen on Elijah Clayton's shirt, centered directly on his chest. And right when the ball kicked off is when you heard the first gunshot. After True Boy was shot in the chest, the gunman started to fire indiscriminately into anyone that he could. The firearm that was used was a Mac 1911 .45 caliber handgun with a laser sight attached to it. And after the gunman had fired 12 rounds into Elijah and other spectators, he then put the gun against his head and pulled the trigger, taking his own life in the process. In all, 3 people died at the scene, and 11 people were taken to local hospitals around the area. 10 people for gunshot wounds, and 1 was treated for minor injuries. The people who died at the scene were Elijah True Boy Clayton, Taylor Spot Me Please Robertson, and of course, the gunman, a 24-year-old man by the name of David Katz, who also went by the name Bread. So like I've said for about 2 episodes now, Madden is not inherently a violent video game. No more than watching the football game on TV, but it takes a particular kind of person to become not only upset over a video game or losing the game, but it takes an especially unwell person to murder 2 people, injure 10 more, and then turn the gun on themselves. Unfortunately, Bread was that kind of person. So David Katz was born on December 22nd of 1993 in Baltimore, Maryland, to Elizabeth and Richard Katz. He was the younger of 2 sons that they had, and the good thing about Richard and Elizabeth was that they had read the signs of things that they could tell that were possibly wrong with their 2 boys, both of which had suffered significant mental health and medical problems for much of their life. David was mentally unwell. This information was disclosed despite HIPAA law due to the fact that David and his brother's mental health were brought up when their parents had filed for divorce in 2007. The records show that their parents completely disagreed on how to care for David, and it was said that he had been hospitalized twice as a teenager at a psychiatric facility, and he was prescribed antidepressants and antipsychotics. And during the divorce, David had written a letter to the judge, and it's pretty disturbing. But it said, quote,
"Today is my birthday, and I'm turning 16 years old. I live with my mom and have been wanting to live with my dad. My mom is pretty crazy. She called the police on me about 20 times for pretty much nothing, like coming home a little late or something. She also gets drunk and starts yelling at me and poking me and doesn't leave me alone. She has hit me before and always takes my stuff because she feels like it. She has twice sent me to the mental hospitals and once to a wilderness therapy program for no significant reason. I also can never talk to her anymore because I hate her more than anything in the world. Sincerely, David Katz."
End quote. Now, family issues are common, but this is a little more intense, because you can feel the resentment in his words and the hatred of his mother from what he wrote to that judge. David and his brother had to go through a very lengthy custody battle, and his father had said that his estranged wife was exaggerating symptoms of mental illness as part of the couple's long-running custody battle. But it would seem that David is kind of a lot to deal with in the matter of either not having correct therapy or the right medications that work for him. But even as he grew up, there were some odd things that he did, even when it came to playing Madden. Other competitors said that he would do very strange plays during the game, like having his receiver catch the ball, but would be wide open for a touchdown and instead would just run the player out of bounds. David was described as being more of a loner, and he would be very quiet and kept to himself. But that would be punctuated with extreme violent outbursts with little to no warning beforehand. And David was also previously enrolled at the University of Maryland, but was not enrolled at the time of the shooting. When learning about this, President Wallace D. Lowe had sent out a tweet that said, quote,
"Our community grieves for the families of those who lost their lives in yesterday's horrific shooting in Jacksonville. When our community was directly impacted by the shooting in Annapolis this summer, I said that more than silent reflection is needed to end the epidemic of gun violence in our country, and I will say that again today. The alleged shooter was previously enrolled here and was not registered for classes this semester. I encourage everyone at our university with relevant information to reach out to law enforcement officers to aid in the investigation happening in Florida."
End quote. And shortly after the shooting took place, the authorities ended up finding David's car and called in a bomb disposal unit to help investigate, because sometimes these random acts of violence can also have a trap waiting for them when they start investigating a little bit deeper. But luckily, there were no explosives found in the car, but they did find another fully loaded Springfield Armory 9mm pistol inside. Luckily, David did not bring the 9mm in with him, as there could have been more casualties than the ones that he already took with the .45 that he brought in. It was discovered that David had legally purchased the handguns and ammunition at a gun store up in Maryland, and while he didn't leave any sort of manifesto, he brought both pistols with, and maybe he was just looking for a reason to use them. And this is kind of a conundrum in my mind, because he knowingly brought these two guns with. He checked into a hotel the day before the shooting and still brought the guns with inside of his vehicle instead of just safely storing them inside of the locked hotel room. But that also makes me wonder, if he didn't get beaten in the tournament and ended up winning thousands of dollars, would he have actually carried out this shooting? I mean, would he have still gotten the gun and shut up the gaming bar? Because typically, if you win like a bunch of money, and yes, trust me, I know that money isn't everything, but if you're a second-time champion or a competitor who won 10 grand a few years back, and then you win again and secured your bag, would you have shot the place up and ended innocent lives? But I guess that's something that we will never know. So the police, FBI, and ATF had gone to southern Baltimore to David's residence, which was actually his father's house. And he had been fully cooperative the entire time, because even the parent of someone who had committed a mass shooting still feels remorse for what their child has just done. But the police didn't find any explosives, no manifesto, or anything else really. David definitely kept to himself. He played his video games, and he never disclosed what his intentions were until everything was said and done. So after the investigation was over, the sheriff's office had deemed that the mass shooting was a criminal act as opposed to an act of terrorism, due to the fact that David wasn't pushing any sort of political or any kind of religious ideologies when he shot those people. He lost his game, and with his mental health at the time, he sought revenge against the ones that he thought had done him wrong. And like in the TJ Reddy episode that I did, I wish there was some nice, neat little package that I could wrap this one up in. But there isn't. David was never able to face a trial, face justice, or anything else because he had decided to commit suicide. Could there have been something to help prevent him from this mass shooting? Of course. Because with mental health, there's no such thing as a person being a lost cause. Medication doesn't work for everyone, but it does work for some. And therapy doesn't always work for everyone, but it does work for some. I truly wish that David had gotten the help that he needed and found the right regimen to help him through his struggles, and I wish he had the toolbox in place to help him deal with his emotions and demons that he couldn't suppress. Nobody should have to live that way, and unfortunately for the victims in this case, David never got the help that he truly needed, and those families will forever feel the pain of what David took away from them. But this is the end of my small video game series. Again, there's no correlation between violence and video games. All the studies that have been conducted show no connection between the two. There's almost an underlying issue with someone that they find themselves when they're mixing virtual violence with real-world violence. But if you feel helpless and you feel like you're losing control, or even with the current day and age with COVID-19, we're all feeling some sort of emotional exhaustion and mental fatigue. It's always recommended that you can find somebody to talk to. And whether it be a friend or a professional, it's okay not to be okay. And while mental health is not your fault, it is your responsibility. That's from Marcus Parks from Last Podcast on the Left. It's true though. But if you would, please take some time out of your day and call someone that you love. Check in on them. Make sure that they're doing okay. Let them vent. Let them open up their heart to you. Because more often than not, people are just looking for their turn to talk instead of just opening their ears, making some eye contact, and listening. We all struggle in our own ways, but it doesn't have to be that way forever. So that's going to do it with this episode. I hope you enjoyed listening to this one, and I hope you can find some time to leave me a review on Apple Podcasts. Also, a big thank you to my executive producers on Patreon, Benjamin Welch, Stacey Jenks, Dan Sheridan, William T. Dawson, Sarah Thompson, Martha Pierce, Alex Aguirre, Justin Reebsum, Ashley Black, and my newest executive producer, Laura McDonald. And if you would like to donate to the show, you can find me on Patreon at patreon.com/murderandsuch, or you can check murderandsuch.com for more information. You can follow the show on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter at murderandsuch, or you can follow me on Twitter, Instagram, the PlayStation Network, Steam, and Snapchat at Huntor27. You can also follow my shitty Peppa Pig Photoshop page on Instagram at Poor Peppa Pig. But I thank you for listening to this mini episode, and I want to know what you think about these. It might be a bi-weekly thing, it might not. I'm entirely not sure yet. But I thank you for being here, I thank you for being a friend, and until next time, I will talk to you soon. Take care.